everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk About It, Brunel. This is our Black History Month Part 2, and today we have with us Semo. Semo, would you like to introduce yourself?
What's happening? How you doing? Finally made it.
I know. It's been long overdue.
Literally.
I actually knew of Semo when I did my undergrad at Brunel because Semo was doing events back then, ice cream party events. I mean, they were always lit and I never failed to miss one. So Semo, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
All right, what's going on, people? I go by the name of Semo, DJ Semo, and I'm actually a Brunel graduate. I'm a bit of a relic. I graduated in 2012. I did product design engineering at Brunel. So anyone that's from the design section of Brunel, big up you, incredibly difficult course. And after graduation, I've become a DJ and a entrepreneur within the entertainment industry. And it all really started in Brunel, building networks and foundations within the student sector. I do events up and down the country, around the world. I'm the tour DJ for Most Stack. I DJ at some of the biggest nightclubs in London. I'm a producer and artist manager and podcaster now, apparently. So yeah, here we are. We're in the building.
That's amazing. Can we, this is so much off topic, but you did study something completely different to what your career is now.
Yeah, literally. I've always loved music, but actually what brought me to Brunel is I wanted to be a basketball player. This is a story I've never told anyone at Brunel, actually. I had a full scholarship to go to Brunel. I'm a book smart guy. I always did well in school, but I took a year out to try follow my hoop dreams and go to America and play basketball. But, when you're 5'11", it ain't really work like that. So it's like, you ain't really tall enough. I killed the entrance exams. I got accepted into all the colleges in America. But to get a full scholarship, because, in America, you have to pay serious money to go to college. You had to be very special from the UK. And I didn't quite cut it. So I ended up taking a year out. I deferred my entry to Brunel, had to reapply. Lost my scholarship, annoyingly. And it was in that year that I discovered that I was pretty good at DJing. Launched an events company where I was living at the time, which was Southampton. And yeah, I ended up doing pretty well with it and then moved to Brunel and kind of had to completely restart again. So yeah, a lot of people, especially the people that I went to university with, thought that I kind of discovered the whole DJing and events thing at Brunel University. I actually came to Brunel with it. I just had no compass of how to build it, develop it, or whatever in Brunel. So it took a bit of time, but yeah, that kind of became my calling. I still played basketball. Brunel University. So Brunel University was the best basketball team in the country when I started.
Really?
Yeah, they won the entire the UK college basketball league, university league, whatever it's called. And so it was one of the offers that I got, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to Brunel. Why not? Made it onto the basketball team, which was dope, but it was also incredibly hard. It's literally Coach Carr. You're waking up at 7 a.m. every day,
Stop it.
Training. Sometimes I'm coming from house parties or gigs or whatever, straight to the basketball court, 7 a.m. doing drills, sprints, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but kept my basketball up, kept my studies up, and launched an events company.
That's amazing. I mean, to be fair, that all sounds...
Yeah, it was pretty tiring.
To be successful, I feel 9 to 5 is not enough.
No, for real. But I mean, while I was at Brunel, I was one of those students that you would have thought had this amazing social life, but I actually had no social life at all. I was always busy, just trying to keep up with something.
Such a surprise, though, because by the time I got to Brunel, I started my undergrad in 2015. Mm-hmm. All people spoke about in terms of events, and there's no shame to Brunel, because I think at one point, was it called Academy?
Yeah.
It's changed its name,
Academy.
Right?
It's now called the Venue, I believe.
Okay, so Brunel used to have the place called Academy, and no offense to them, but it was always about ice cream party events. They were always jam-packed. The music was the one. So I'm surprised because you had so many events that you weren't a social butterfly in a sense then at your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, I would be out occasionally, well, mainly when I was a student, but by the time I got to the end of the second year, I was just so focused on building the business. I didn't go out as much, or I would kind of wait for my events to go out because people would come and see me. You
Yeah.
know, like people would want to come and hear me play. So I became a little bit more deliberate with the days that I'd go out. So yeah. Um,
That's a big
but yeah,
achievement though. You should be proud of yourself.
thank you, man. We achieved a lot in Brunel. It was a beautiful time. Very, very beautiful time. We did some great things.
Not a
So
beautiful time for my bank account though.
but you know what? We
The
have
memories were
so
worth
many
it.
memories. Yeah,
The
we have
memories were
so
worth
many
it.
memories. Like when we start, I mean, I'm not so much in touch with like the student body at Brunel anymore, but I mean, right after the pandemic, I remember some of the last kind of members of our street team that were still at Brunel telling us how they would, you know, like speak to some of the new students and tell them about the things that we had done and the artists that we had brought to Uxbridge, and people were like, "No way!" So yeah, like I'm really, really proud of what we done. And I think during the lockdown, just before we turned 10 years old, as a brand, as a company, and we did like this highlight reel, which just showed all of the beautiful moments that of what we had done with the company in Uxbridge. So yeah, man, I'm super proud. I'm really grateful to
I
even just
fully
have had the
remember.
opportunity.
I think, oh, I can't remember what year this was. It might have been 2018. I was at Carnival and you guys had your float.
Yes, Carnival has always been one of our like big, big things. Like we love Carnival, man. So if you've ever been to Nottingham Carnival and you've been on the road with us, you'll know like it gets crazy. Like we go mad.
No, it's such a vibe. So let's dive
For real,
into
for real.
it. So
Let's
obviously,
go.
so October was like Black History Month. What would you say that was like for you growing up in comparison to now, like that topic?
But for me, growing up was a big identity crisis. It was moving to a country where people want to put a label on you, but based on how you look, they have no idea how to take you. So, for those that don't know, I am Sudanese. I was born in Sudan, but I'm mixed race. I'm African Arabian, so I'm basically partly Sudanese, partly Egyptian. My brothers don't look like me. My older brother, Afro hair, darker skin. My younger brother, same kind of features. I got the Arab gene really heavy. It's quite typical in Sudanese culture where you might get like one of the siblings that just comes out like an egg. But I was like, they would, in my own culture, they would tease me and make fun of me because I was so light. But it wasn't until I came to the UK that I realized like how significant it was that I didn't look like my peers from where I'm from. Still accepted where I'm from. My country loves me, and the people that I've grown up with, you know, as much as they might have poked some fun at me, they accepted me as Sudanese. But the UK, it was tough. Like growing up in the UK was really difficult because it was like having Afro Caribbean culture, but looking anything from Hispanic to Lebanese. And it's almost like, let's say, like native English people that I would meet would try to put me in a box in their mind so that they would know how racist to be to me. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like there was a scale of racism and they just wanted to feel like, where can I place this guy on that? So like school was tough.
Can I ask how old were you when you moved here?
I was 4, so I was young. I couldn't even speak English when I came here. And, you know, coming from a country where we all really embrace each other, regardless of the color of your skin, it was just very different and really just a weird experience. Obviously, not everyone. I don't want to like paint the brush across the whole country, but yeah, like you're talking about a time way before social media where a lot of like hate crimes would just go under the carpet. You couldn't even prove it. You know, like I would be on and I've lived all over the UK. That's one thing about me is like I'm very personable and I find it easy to make friends because I've literally lived everywhere. I've lived in Cardiff, Bristol, Southampton, went to college in Winchester. obviously London, I lived in Blackpool, and having all these different experiences with different people and being amongst different cultures, it really opened my mind and made me kind of love so many different types of people and cultures, but also showed me how people can be really cruel.
Yeah.
And how they can be very judgmental of you, again, based on the color of your skin or your culture or whatever, right? So, yeah, I had a very interesting like childhood growing up, but it molded me into the person that I am, and I'm very grateful for it. I wouldn't change it. And honestly, it kind of gave me my purpose later on in my adult life, made me realize kind of, there's things that I saw or things that I heard or privileges that I was given that my brothers might not have been given. And all these experiences really taught me how to navigate this country. So, yeah, I think being someone from Africa that looks a bit different, I was kind of given a purpose very early because I love my people, like I love my culture and I love everything we represent. And it's unapologetic, regardless of what room I'm in or how you take me. I'm always going to fly my flag. And that became incredibly relevant when I moved to London to go to university. And I found myself in Uxbridge amongst my peers. And this is, where I really started to make change with my company and start to like push change. Obviously, on the forefront, like students wouldn't even really understand or see what it was that we were doing behind the scenes. But yeah, man, I'll explain some of it today in the podcast. Hopefully, I'll give you guys some light on the politics behind the brand.
I feel like, I don't know, for me, I felt like, no disrespect to Brunel many years ago, but I think the nightlife and the entertainment spaces we had were very like commercial and mainstream.
Yeah.
That it kind of like its purpose was to entertain like a certain group. But the thing is with Brunel, it's very multicultural. So for me, I felt like the events that you guys hosted were more, what's the word? Where am I going with this, Semo? What's the word?
They were more diverse. They were more accepting. It was a safe space for us to be ourselves. And you wouldn't imagine the amount of prejudice that's in the nightlife scene. You could not imagine. To be fair, you probably could. Mainly males, like males that went to Brunel University, young Black men specifically, who would go to what you guys would know as Attic now. Back in the day, it was called Liquid and Liquid Uxbridge. If you're a relic like me, like remember the names.
Wednesdays.
They used to discriminate heavily against the mandem. Like if you come to the front door, you could, on any given day, they might just give you stress. Queuing up, you'd have to split up the group and maybe try and come in with a couple of girls just to look a little bit less intimidating or more palatable. And that's because we're in like a, environment where the entire ecosystem is run by people that don't really understand us, that are threatened by us and don't really get our culture, if that makes sense. You turn up and you'd be on the doors and there'd be like maybe one Black security guard and the rest of them feel like they know how to handle you, but are overly aggressive or rude or short. And just, we would fight battles every single night.
Yeah.
Every single night. Different security firms. There were some security firms that were amazing and we found it a pleasure to work with them. But there were some that were really difficult. There were managers in venues that made our life hell. And we would stand up to them all the time. We would really try and like force a change within the community so that our customers would come and feel welcome and feel accepted and feel free and feel relaxed, and feel like they want to come back. But it took a lot of fighting. There was times where, customers would leave our events a little bit disgruntled or maybe they had a bad experience. And we'd take the time to like speak to everyone and be like, listen, tell us what happened. But yeah, we were fighting a fight. Oh my God. The fight got a little bit easier each year as we progressed. But when we first started, it was tough. And I've always considered myself the Trojan horse in the Brunel community, again, because of how I look. When I went into these nightclubs for the first time, they probably thought, my first event, I would turn up and, you'd have 1,000 Habibtis and or Spanish people or whatever. They were like, yeah, this guy's going to bring whoever, right? 1,000 of the man them turn up. 1,000 of my sisters turn up, and we're ready to get lit, and we're playing dancehall, we're playing Afro beats, we're playing soca, the styles of music that you don't really hear in these mainstream nightclubs. And they were spun. They were so spun. These managers had no idea what to do. And the thing is, there's only one like venue in Uxbridge, and the venue was a little bit desperate, I guess, when we were like on our come up. They weren't doing so good. There's always whispers like every year, oh, this venue's going to close down, it's going to close down.
True, actually.
And literally, like everyone thought the venue was going to close down for years. And we were really one of the brands that was keeping it afloat. We was really like providing it with consistent business. But I always felt this air of, we fucking hate these guys. Like they were treating us like they absolutely hated us. And, but they couldn't do without us because we were bringing them so much business, right? And we had to kind of face that stress. And I understood my purpose quite quickly in being somebody that got my foot in the door there. I was the first student ever to host events at these super clubs, like fresh 19, 20-year-old boy coming into these giant corporate venues and basically bringing them large scale numbers of people, In London nowadays, if you do a party and you get 200 people turn up, that's a successful party. People are really proud of that. To bring 1,500 people consistently, regularly, and this is before we were booking artists. This is before artists were a thing with ice cream parties. This is like Semo's beach party days.
I remember. I was there.
If you was there,
I was there.
What a time. What a time. So I'm saying, so they'd never seen anything like it. This one kid would turn up and 1,500 people would pull up in Bati Rider and string vests and what I'm saying. True. Sometimes in nothing at all, man, them just come topless and go come and lick us G-string.
Semo's Halloween events
were crazy. You know what I'm saying? And no artists. This is way before the whole artist. I think we spoiled Brunel after a while. Like once we started putting these 100%. Artist events on, people started getting spoiled. We couldn't go back after that. But long story short, like once we had kind of got our foot in the door, we had slowly started to create the safe place for Black youth to come from all over the country and celebrate Black music and celebrate Black culture. We had everyone from WizKid to Pop Smoke perform live on that stage in Uxbridge. And every time we'd announce someone, people were like, as if they're coming to Uxbridge. Why would they come to Uxbridge?
I know.
I was like, yeah.
He's not lying.
I was like, wait and see. Trust me, wait and see. So we had some amazing guests that came through that place, and we created something beautiful. It was more than just events. It was really a representation of our culture and just unfiltered, organic format. It wasn't that we had jumped on a bandwagon because outside of our bubble, they weren't fucking with our music. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah,
I swear,
you can.
right? Okay.
Time.
I don't have so much of a potty mouth, but occasionally you might hear a little slip. But at the time, it wasn't like popular to listen to like UK rap. When gigs came out with Talking the Hardest, you play that in
by the way, the national anthem now. It will forever be.
Let them know. You couldn't play that in a main room in Liquid or the Academy or whatever, or a Mega Global, and it would go off. But if you came to an ice cream party and you played that, mosh pits, like it was going crazy. And this is like 2010. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like early days. So this is before the culture had been adopted. Once we started to kind of make that transition into, I see what they're doing over there. Like the commercial, okay, that ice cream thing is lit. Like what's going on over there? We used to start getting crossovers of crowds. Our crowd became so mixed over the years, and we actually really embraced it. Like we were like, oh, this is cool. Like we can actually show kids out of our diaspora, out of our typical clientele, what we're all about. without diluting the brand, without making it fluffy, without, watering it down.
Oh, 100.
And that was a beautiful thing. Like we really, really loved the fact that we could do that. And that's where ice cream really started to spread. We ended up in Manchester, Hull, Leeds. We were doing events all over the country. We did events in Portugal. We did events in Ibiza. And this is where the sauce really started to spread. So, yeah, that's where we really realized that we had a mission. It was more than just like, hey, we want to throw raves. Like
It was way more than that.
it was way more than that. We structured it as a company. We had employees. We had an office, and everything that we did was deliberately done to, like build that legacy.
Yeah.
And the purpose became bigger than us. We started working closely with licensing units and the Met Police so that it would become easier to put on black events in London without them trying to shut them down. Because anyone that used to support us back in the day knows just how many of our events got shut down.
Yeah.
We had some massive events. I have an event all now. I struggle to speak about it. We had an event that was meant to happen with Roddy Ricch, and this was one of the most exciting events we had ever put on. It was around the time we had started doing superstar American artists, and it was off the back of doing a Tory Lanez show, and everyone was gassed. It was a movie. Yeah. It was literally like euphoric. It was like there was something in the air. It was like magic. And we announced this Roddy Ricch show, and it was a beautiful moment because for us, it was like, we realized how much our crowd fucked with us. Mm-hmm. The tickets sold out in 4 hours. Yeah. I'm talking like 1,500 tickets in 4 hours, and these tickets were like 25.
I don't know if you know about this, but the amount of students that would come to the venue anyway, once that like doors were open and everyone's in and still try to get tickets.
Yeah.
Or call their friends and be like, is there any way?
Trust me, it was crazy. That event, it was sold out so quickly. We doubled it and announced another one in Watford. The venues are about half an hour away from each other. So we did like an early performance in Uxbridge and a later performance in Watford. That event was 50% sold out. We came to the week of the event, and an incident had happened inside London with Roddy Ricch, and that had caused the police to basically shut down all the after parties that he was going to perform at with 2 days notice. And we just couldn't believe it. We were just like, this isn't real. Like, it can't be real. Like we put so much time and effort into this and so much work. And to add insult to injury, Roddy Ricch's agents who had booked him in to do the shows were refusing to give refunds to any of the promoters. So they were trying to run away with over like 100K in booking fees. It was a dark time. It was a horrible time. And it reminded us, like, no matter how good we are, no matter how great our product is, we are still answerable and at the mercy of a gatekeeper that doesn't understand our culture, doesn't understand our brand. And that was a really horrible moment. Like my whole team, we just wanted to quit. We all wanted to wash our hands with it and just move on. But we felt the duty to stay in the space and try and affect it, to be better for the next generation of event organizers, or, what is now the DLTs and the recesses and all these massive brands in London who are able to do these giant events without getting shut down. So it was around that time when that's when we started working really close with like licensing units and the police and whatever to try to create systems to make it easier.
But I do feel like, you began the whole doing the events and everything to create like this space to welcome. I don't want to say the minority, but we were the minority. When you come to Brunel, though, those people of color are the majority.
Yeah.
But it's like, even though you had all these setbacks, you kind of have to remind yourself why you started in the first place and what you have achieved.
Absolutely. Trust me. Like, we're very proud. Like, my team, I had an amazing team of we called it the ice cream family at its peak. I think there was over 100 people that worked in our team. And the majority of people that worked with me really understood the mission and the purpose and were so invested. It was like a cult at one point.
Yeah.
Like, even if we released like random pieces of merchandise, like a hat or a jumper, it would sell out like that because
All
we
the
had
t-shirts.
all the t-shirts, yeah, the gang t-shirts and all that. You know, we did things so deliberately. Like we printed these t-shirts that literally say gang on the chest, and it wasn't to promote gang violence. It was to promote a slogan within our culture that only we understand as like it means family. So if you're in the
Yeah.
gang, like if in your clique, if you're supporting what we're doing in our movement, then yeah, you're part of the gang, which is a complete like play on the word based on how a commercial corporate company might see it. And we love that. You know, we love being like, you know, different and relative to people that understood it. You know, 'cause at the time people would be going around saying
Behind it, or the like
exactly,
perception they have of it.
exactly. And the people that understood it were like, bro, that's beautiful. Like that is genius. Like, because we get it and it represents us authentically, which is everything that we wanted to do. Um, so yeah, that time there, I think it was around like 2017, 2018, and things were beautiful. It was a really, really good time. So anyone that was alive in the room and, you know, supported us, boy, we appreciate you. You guys really, you know, helped us cement like a moment in history.
They were good memories. They were good nights. And from what I remember, I mean, there wasn't too much drama at these events in terms of
Yeah,
like everyone came for a good vibe.
yeah,
And I personally feel like when I used to go for like Liquid Wednesdays, you're more likely to get into chaos and mix up in those nights.
right.
But everyone came with the same purpose. Does that make sense for these events?
Exactly.
Everyone truly came to enjoy the music.
Literally, it was all about the music, and it was one of those safe places where you could come and hear the music and leave like, rah, I don't get that every day.
No, it's
They
true.
don't do that every day. And I realized how big we had got when I arrived at, I got to a point where I didn't run my events anymore. I had a whole team that ran my events. So I arrived at my event one day, ready to go and jump on the DJ set. And there was a girl outside and she was crying. I was like, baby girl, what's wrong? She's like, I've come all the way from Norway to come to an ice cream party and they won't let me in. And I pleaded with the door team, the security team, to let this girl in. And we actually got her in. It was a beautiful moment. But that made me feel really humble. I was just like, wow, like this woman's like come from Europe, like Europe, to come take an ice cream party. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, it was a really great thing. It's a shame that Uxbridge has changed so much now. You know, there's no large format nightclubs. There's been such a pause and a break since the pandemic that the entire culture's kind of shifted in Uxbridge. It's a little bit different now. So I don't think there's that same appreciation for what we used to do. I don't think people really care as much, which is a shame. But again, in the time that we were there, we did some amazing things. I'm very proud of it. So yeah.
I mean, I can agree with you on that because I mean, when I went to uni, undergrad, what, 2015? Okay, so for me personally, I felt like Uxbridge was a very Caucasian area. So I was a bit thrown off because I'm from like Northwest myself, but I'm from Brent. So, you know, it's multicultural.
Okay.
So I was like, what am I doing? Like, oh. And I would remember going to like a few events on campus and I'm like, wow, this is really not my thing. Started going to ice cream party events. And I don't know, for me, I've always grown up with that music as well. Even though I'm Asian, majority of my friends growing up were Black. So I just grew up to listening to dance hall, soca, everything. So I knew those songs. And it was like, I remember going to these events and even though I was Asian, I was accepted by everyone there. Yeah. And it was a place where I felt like I could be myself. And now that I've gone back and I'm doing my master's, obviously I'm not about going out every weekend now, but there isn't that space. I don't see it.
Yeah. And again, that's down to the gatekeepers. So even, you know, when we were, you know, really doing our thing and churning out events and artists and all these kind of things, we had partnerships with pretty much everyone in that area. Including campus, and we worked with the SU, and we used to produce our own events. We actually brought back their venue to life. Like, it was super dead at one point. So we started to introduce these spin-off smaller brands. We had one called Afrobash, which was a sound clash. It was excellent. Like, everyone that knew about Afrobash loved it. We had one called Brain Freeze, which represented like UK styles of music, rap and drill and those kind of things. And we started to build these sub brands, like these little brands under the umbrella that were really cool. We even had a comedy show at one point called Happy Days. And we used to bring like comedians down to Uxbridge, like black comedians, so that, you know, the students that were there could really, you know, take in all different parts of the culture. And at the height, we were really killing it with every single brand, as well as ice cream as the main kind of mother brand. And it was just a beautiful time just to kind of come and just be immersed in Black culture. And a lot of it was really down to not only how we kind of branded it and put it together, the authenticity behind it, the original kind of process that we would go through to put these events together was so appealing to our community that it literally spread like wildfire. We also had a lot of support from societies. So, you know, we worked closely with like the ACS. When I was a student at Brunel, the ACS was massive. It was the biggest ACS in the country. It was over 400 members. It was a very welcoming ACS. There were white members of the ACS. There were people that would come down to learn about Black culture. They would regularly throw events that were packed from the rafters. You know, you'd have to get the biggest lecture hall in the lecture center, and even then, people would be standing up in the aisles, and it was ridiculous. It was so busy, and we were really blessed. We had some amazing people from our community that went to Brunel at that time. Michael Dapper was a student at Brunel in that era. Hardy Caprio, Perry Shake Straighten, so many people. I'm sure Harry Panera went to Brunel as well.
I think
There
he
was
did,
so,
you know.
yeah, so Idris, not Idris Elba, Damson Idris, Damson Idris as well went to Brunel University. Like, these are all just amazing people who've gone on to be mega celebrities, but they were all from within that melting pot in that 2-3 years of ACS. And we had some amazing leaders that were the ACS presidents, inspiring when they spoke, deliberate in their actions. We had this thing called the ACS Heroes Award, which would basically commend members of the community that were doing, you know, excellent things and things that were, you know, pushing and striving for greatness and excellence within business, social kind of projects, etc. We work closely with the ACLT on that as well. And I won the Hero Award, the Brunel Hero Award I think it was my second year. I think it was my first year, because I was such a aspiring, hardworking member of the community at that time. So yeah, like.
So I asked. So
Yeah.
you mentioned at the very beginning, like growing up, you somewhat had like an identity crisis when you came here. So as you grew up and then also coming to Brunel, starting Ice Cream Party, how do you feel like that impacted your identity, and like did it have an impact on your well-being as well?
Before I really understood my identity, one thing I knew is I loved my culture, and I loved people from where I was from. So Black culture to me was home. Like, it was just normal. It wasn't something that I had to learn. It was something I grew up around. One thing that I did learn, and one thing that I was very blessed to be introduced to, was West Indian culture, which obviously someone from Africa is not really exposed to until you come to somewhere like the UK, because there's such a diverse amount of West Indians. And I say West Indians because for a long time, everyone just thought it was Jamaica in the building. And then you realize there's so many beautiful small islands that you can discover, and they've all got their own unique cultures and languages and foods and all these amazing things. And when I was going through my identity crisis, this was really a time where if you weren't like West African, West African, like Ghanaian or Nigerian, you weren't really considered to be African. East Africans are still fighting that fight today, where we're trying to get recognition and, like acceptance from a lot of different African like countries. I was embraced by West Indians, and there was a portion of my life in Bristol where Bristol is a very Jamaican heavy city. There's a lot of history and culture, beautiful history and beautiful culture behind Bristol, but there's also a lot of dark history behind Bristol, as we saw during the lockdown when they were ripping down statues in Bristol. And West Indians in Bristol, Jamaicans particularly, really like took me under their wing. And I met most of them through basketball. Like basketball became my escape. It became my first kind of like form of expression. And I made so many great friends, and I realized just how absolutely generous and loving West Indians are. They're not very judgmental, and
very welcoming.
So welcoming. Like it's crazy. Like, like in African culture, we can be quite judgy sometimes. Not in West Indian culture, not in the ones that I was exposed to. And I was very fortunate and blessed to have this friendship circle that really embraced me. And before I really learned who I was, I basically became like an honorary Jamaican. Like I was basically immersed in a Jamaican community in Bristol, in St. Paul's and Easton, where most of my friends used to live. So for me, coming to Brunel and then during that time, kind of challenging my own identity and trying to just rediscover kind of who I was based on what this UK life had presented me, helped me to understand my own identity, but helped me from a safe place of, okay, cool, this is your identity, but your culture, you've actually grown up, in the most influential years of your life from, let's say, like 12 years old to like 18, which is where you really define your character. You're basically West Indian, bro. And we had this running joke amongst like a lot of my friends for a long time, like Semo's basically like an honorary yardie. That's what she used to call me. It's a joke, obviously, because there's a big difference between West Indians and Yardies. So I must make that clear on this podcast, because not every West Indian you meet is a Yardie, all right? But it was a joke. It was a joke that they used to run with me because I became the go-to person for dancehall music. And this is way before I was a DJ. So all my friends used to come to me for the newest dancehall tracks. And that's kind of my first, I don't know, taste of DJing before I became a DJ, I guess. So but the identity crisis. Sorry, go on.
How do you feel that how do you feel that the events impacted the other students on campus?
They loved it. It felt like it was our event. It didn't even feel like this guy called Semo's come along and has created something by himself and has thrown out the community and everyone's just gone like, It was something that I sat with so many different members of my community who wanted me to really push to that level. I'd already had experience of doing large format events from before I came to university, because I started these events when I lived in Southampton.
Right.
And I had sold out my first 1,000 capacity event when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
But it was for college students. So there was like this gray area of students who were going from like AS level to A level. Some of them were 18, some of them weren't 18, but they all wanted to party. So we made a deal with one of the biggest venues in Southampton. And we had told them, look, like, we're going to give wristbands to people over 18 and people under 18 won't get wristbands. We just want to throw a fucking like huge party. Let's do it. And that's exactly what we did. 1,000 kids turned up and we went crazy to R&B, hip hop and bashment. That was the first massive event I ever did. I came home with so much money in a little lunchbox. My dad thought I was a drug dealer, literally. So when I managed to translate that to Brunel, I had played 30 house parties in my first year. I had been banned from campus. I had to pay a fine to get into second year. But by the time I got to second year, everyone knew I was lit. And this is where I started to really fall into my DJ bag, because I discovered how much I loved music. Like prior to that point, it was kind of like, it was just something that existed in my life, but I didn't understand how much I appreciated it. And to be able to share that with my community, you know, like wake up and hit the group chat. And this is back in the day when we was using BBM. We didn't have like WhatsApp and that. And this is gonna make me sound like a relic, but we didn't have WhatsApp when I was a uni student. You know, we had BlackBerry pin. What's your pin? Run me that pin. Run it.
So do you remember when you could take out your battery and swap it with someone else when you ran out of
Yes.
battery?
Are you mad? Are you mad? Trust me. And the thing is, I was one of those students that came to Brunel with an iPhone. I had the very first iPhone ever. iPhone 1, iPhone Genesis, literally. But no one else had an iPhone. Everyone had BB pin. When I came to London, everyone was like, yo, I got BB. So I had to go and buy a BB just so I could fit into the community whilst I had my iPhone. So we used to swap like songs and be like, yo, have you heard this song? Like, this is during the funky house era as well. And like everyone would share songs and whatever. And it was just a whole experience that we all like lived together, which was wicked. Like I proper loved it. So I was blessed to have a community around me that helped me in those early steps to build that foundation for ice cream. And because the foundation was so strong, I think that's why we had such a massive kind of impact on the community, and it spread from Uxbridge all over London. Everywhere. There wasn't a place I could go.
I went to Brunel. They'd be like, "Oh, you must go to all them parties." I heard they have a sit. I'm like,
literally.
No, Liquid does it.
Yeah.
Campus is ice cream parties. They're like, "Yeah, we've heard about them." And I remember you guys used to post after movies of the event.
Yeah. I remember when we started doing that, and we was just like, we got to a point where we was 4 years in, and we'd always reminisce and talk, and we'd have videos on that we recorded on our phone or whatever. And I was just like, we need to document this shit, man. Like, we need to actually document it. Before that, it was just grainy footage of, you know, like guys walking around Semo's beach party with their little like camcorders or whatever. Once
I don't want to go on YouTube and look back because I don't want to spot myself in the crowd anywhere.
Because you know you're gonna be in one of those videos.
I was. I remember once I was in my first year and I had really short hair, like boy cut hair, right? And I went to one of your events, and afterwards someone came up to me and they were like, "Yo, you're that Asian girl that can dance." And I was like, "There's loads of Asian girls on this campus. You're not talking about me. I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Yeah, but you're the only Asian girl with that short hair." Like, that was definitely. And I was like, "Oh, I need to watch myself." You know.
He clutched you.
I need to watch myself.
Crazy.
But yeah, I think. Do you know what? It was such a good. Like, it was such a great space for people, and it was so welcoming. Like, it generally came to a point where like it didn't matter where you were from. Everyone was just there for the good vibes. But like for me, I don't know about you, but how do you feel since you've been in the industry for so long? How do you feel like, do you think it's progressed? Do you think it's changed? Do you feel like after the pandemic, we've gone backwards in terms of race? Like, what are your opinions?
It's multifaceted, in my opinion, because since the pandemic, I've worked with some of the biggest events companies in the country. I've literally built businesses for some of the biggest venue estates in the country, and I've got to sit in their head offices and just hear how they speak about different types of people and how they categorize or classify you by the color of your skin. So I think it's almost like a mask is being worn. On the face of it, it looks pretty and it looks happy and welcoming and whatever. But actually, like I said, the gatekeepers, the people behind the scenes, they haven't really changed. I think it's going to take another generation, because the Gen Zs, what we call the Gen Zs and the millennials right now, we're all woke and we all want to see things change and whatever, but we're not in charge. Most of us are not in charge yet. It's when we get to our late 30s and 40s and we start to hold CEO positions and directors and, you know, COOs, that's where you're going to start to really, really see changes. At the moment, the gatekeepers are still very much in control. And again, it's one of the reasons why I didn't make a return to Brunel. Like, you know, I didn't make a return to Uxbridge post-pandemic. Well, one of the main reasons is the only nightclub in the town closed down. But one of the other reasons is the gatekeepers that run the campus, they wanted to take a completely different approach and didn't want to embrace Black culture and Black music anymore. It wasn't their thing. You know, they wanted to, in their eyes, and literally, you know, run events in a safer way. And that's what they kind of put it down to.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because
Yeah.
I remember being on campus and there was an incident, but that incident that took place had nothing to do with the event. It actually took place outside of the event. I don't know if it was one of your events. And it took place outside of the event. And then after that, it was like lock off.
Yeah, so we've never spoken about this, especially not on camera. But no. There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide.
I remember being at uni at that point still.
Yeah, but the reason why we had never spoken about it is because it was the gatekeepers had made it so fragile for us that even us talking about it was so threatening to them that they would pull the plug on us.
Yeah.
You know, so they would be there sitting there telling us what we can say. Now, obviously, when we're going and having meetings with our mass street teams, we're telling them what it is. But we weren't allowed to actually publicly go online and make our own statements. So, yeah, first of all, that night, probably the best ice cream event ever in history. This was Afrobash finale. It was in Refreshers Week. And that event was probably the best event we've ever thrown, ever. And I've done events with Pop Smoke. I've done events with WizKid. I've done events with Megan Thee Stallion. And it was this one sound clash in 2017. And I'll never forget it. It was the best event ever. Afterwards, there were some kids that weren't from the campus. They got mixed up with some kids that had come to our event from Uxbridge College outside.
Yeah.
I think it was further down the strip. They got into an altercation, and sadly, one of the boys got stabbed. We spoke to the boy. I think it was a couple of days after, because we were genuinely concerned. And you know, we see everyone that comes to one of our events as family. Like, we see them as an extension of us. So if something bad has happened to someone, whether it's our fault or not, we're gonna, out of care, reach out. And we did, and he was fine, and we thank God and we prayed on it. And it was heartbreaking. And it's very similar to the Roddy Ricch situation. The fallout of the Roddy Ricch situation was way worse. You know, like, Roddy Ricch situation happened 2 boroughs away in Brixton. And because of what happened in Brixton, we got banned from doing events at Attic and Uxbridge for 6 months.
Wow.
Our residency at Mega Global got pulled. And me personally, I wasn't allowed to DJ in the borough for something like...
I think I remember when that happened, because
when
the residency got pulled,
the
events were dead. So people stopped going.
Yeah. And then there was a massive collapse in the ecosystem of the business, because once they did that, Mega Global died. It died a death.
I remember going to one event and being like, whoa, where's like the Ice Cream family at? Because
literally. And then by the time they had burnt it to the ground, they realized, actually, we made it what it was.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, they invited us back. But by that time, the community had turned its back on it. They were just like, okay, you pulled the plug on Ashley, and we ain't fucking with you no more. And it was crazy, though. It was just how they could make such a drastic decision based on an event that had nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
And again, it was just a reality check. It was just kind of like, wow, like, as successful as we can be, we don't own shit. Like, we don't own none of this, and it can be taken away. It's almost like, to them, us being here is a gift. They see it as a gift, you know, and they just constantly remind us, like, yeah, bro, like, we'll take this shit away.
But, you know, for me, like, I feel like it it shows progress. Like it's very small progress, because if you spin it back for maybe like 20 years ago, maybe this wasn't even possible, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
there's progress in that. However, there is so much more to go. It's not
Oh
going to
yeah.
be our generation that changes anything. It's our generation that's starting it, but it's
Yep.
going to be the younger years that actually take it on. Does that make sense?
Well, let me tell you what's happened recently. So, well, first of all, yeah, we kind of were the first to come in and challenge these things. You know, we would be in the room. I've got, you know, I've got memories of meetings where I'm standing up to the biggest bosses in certain, you know, companies, and we were really like activists within the community for those kind of things. Everything that we did had to represent our culture. It wasn't just
Yeah.
about making money and throwing raves and parties and coming in and shoving around. Like, no, that wasn't it. And that's been lost now on this next kind of generation of event organizers in Uxbridge. They don't really care about that. I think that's quite sad. I think it's quite important that we need leaders in the community to understand the purpose of why you need to represent yourself and have a voice. And ultimately, where we ended up going was pushing it in towards London. And now, if you go to London, you find amazing events. There are so many brands that are doing great parties. And a part of that is also because our community loves to party. We love to shake a foot, you know.
Yeah.
And it got
It's
to a point
true.
where it's true. And a lot of these venues really relied on promoters. So you go into London now, and every
Yeah.
weekend there's a big party happening from within the Afro Caribbean community. And it's kind of shifted in London in that sense because they want us now. Like they actually want us there, but they want us to be good, just not too good. Once you start to get a
They
bit
still
too
want to
good,
keep you in a cage.
yeah.
They need you in a cage. Still
But
box. If you come out of that, you're doing too much.
there are brilliant brands that are showing that you can break that mold. And again, I commend them. Brands like DLT, brands like Recess, who are doing massive events regularly, and they're showing that you can work with brands, you can get investments, you can get, you know, like big corporations to back you and fund you. And it's a beautiful time to watch how the event scene is growing in London. But fringe London or outside of London, you might go to smaller towns. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's still very selective or very cautious about, you know, like who they let come and work, which I think will change over the next 5 years.
But then I also feel like Ice Cream Party was good in a sense, like the people that you hired and the people that worked for you, whether it be the promoters or the guys selling the tickets or the merch, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, majority of your team were people of color, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, if that was what they wanted to go into in terms of their career, that was a good way of them putting their foot in the door and committing to the role and being surrounded by that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
it's not easy to get into the industry that you're involved in.
Yeah, for real. And some of the people who have been in our team have ran events all over the world, you know, have done some amazing things. Some of the people in our team are now record label executives at some of the biggest record labels in the world. So yeah, like we really did create this platform and nurture people. As long as you were honest, clean-hearted, and trustworthy, we had all the time in the world for you. And I'm just grateful, you know, I'm grateful to have met these people as well, because they contributed so much to what we were doing and so much to our culture. And yeah,
It was beautiful, to be honest.
it really was, man. That's why I keep saying, what a time. Like
It was. It feels like a whole of a lifetime ago, to be honest with you.
And whether it's me or someone else, I really hope to see something of that kind of culture return to Uxbridge.
Yeah, I do.
I really do.
I think it is something that is deeply missed there. Like it doesn't feel the same on campus without it. It's different. It is different. Yeah. Okay, let's go for your closing thoughts. What are your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are all my Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters, my older brothers and my older sisters, let's collaborate more. Let's work together. The scene has opened up quite a lot. There's a lot of money to be made. And I think that one thing that we still lack is collaboration. And that's noted very strongly in the music industry. Like artists are speaking about it a lot right now. You go to America, you can walk into a studio in America and you'll have 20, 30 artists and 5 producers, all there just jamming, working, making music. It's not as fluid in the UK yet. And I think that's because we don't have as much money in our communities. So when it comes to making that bag, as soon as someone gets a little bit of momentum, a lot of people are very protective. They hold that bag close to their chest. I think it's time that we start to really open up and start collaborating and working. I work with an amazing group of promoters in London. There's about 6 or 7 promotion companies, and we all kind of work in a circle. And we collaborate all the time, and it is beautiful. Every week, one of us has an event. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. I want to see more space for women to come in and own that space as well. I was with an amazing group of ladies yesterday that had an event in Shoreditch. They threw a West Indian themed Christmas brunch, which was brilliant. These three sisters from Trinidad, and it's just inspiring. Just watching just how women have this attention to detail that men could learn from, and just watching how they put their event together and how much fun it was. It was inspiring for me. So I want to see more of that. I want to see more ladies take the reins of this events thing and just throw parties and for events and live shows and whatever. And I'd love to see that. So let's collaborate, guys. Let's work and let's stay humble. Let's stay positive. Let's move forward. Let's push. Let's build. Let's make this money. Let's make this money. And yeah.
And at that point, how can they contact you?
Social media, hit me up at DJ Semo on Instagram. That's probably the best place to get at me. And yeah, I'm friendly. Like, holler at me, whether it's for advice or whether it's to collab or you want me to come and shut down one of your shows, hit me up.
It's not lying. He is actually like a friendly giant. He has been like always.
Trust me, man. Trust me.
Okay, guys, thank you for listening. And on that note, we will put our links in the description. So follow us on Instagram, Spotify, you're on our YouTube. Send us an email if you want to join in. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.